Hello, how are you? Today I'm going to answer a question that a lot of people have and ask me here on the channel. After all, is banana a fruit recommended for those who want to control their blood pressure, or is it not recommended? Is it bad for you? Many people think it's bad because of the large amount of natural sugars present in bananas. And there are people who say it's really good for you because of the high amount of potassium. So who's right after all? Let's talk about this, about quantity and the best combinations. You're gonna love this video. Stay until the end because you won't want to miss it. Before we start, I want to ask you if you have the habit of monitoring your blood pressure, if you regularly check it, measure it at home, at the pharmacy, or only when you go to the doctor, or if you don't worry about it at all. If you have any blood pressure issues, how does that work for you? Write to me down here in the comments. If you can, go ahead and leave your like on the video. That like is really important to me here. Every like counts a lot. And if you know someone who struggles with blood pressure problems, share this video with them so they can learn more about a fruit that's so present in our daily lives. When we think about controlling blood pressure, we usually think about salt, but we know that salt is just one of the factors that can influence blood pressure. In reality, blood pressure depends a lot on the volume of blood circulating, the resistance in the blood vessels, and the hormones that are secreted, which kind of change this process of releasing water from the body, eliminating water, sodium, and potassium, all of which influence blood pressure. So when we retain more sodium, we end up retaining more water, and with that, we increase the volume of our blood. The blood becomes more liquid, so to speak, just to make it easier to understand, and this ends up causing blood pressure to tend to rise. So when the blood vessels are also stiffer or more constricted, peripheral resistance increases and blood pressure goes up. Just think of a garden hose, right? A new one, really soft and flexible, which has less resistance, and then a hose that's been out in the sun for a long time. It's drier, harder, and the pressure inside is higher. So that's a good analogy for us to understand how this works as well. There's also the issue of our daily diet, right? Salt can increase this fluid retention and raise this volume, as I mentioned to you. So all of this can have an effect. It's not just salt, obviously, but when we take this into account, we realize that sodium plays a very important role in blood pressure. And then when we look at bananas, one of the nutrients that stands out the most in their composition is the large amount of potassium they contain. In fact, when I make videos talking about potassium, about how to consume more dietary potassium in your diet, one of the foods I always mention is bananas, because a banana can have around, on average, 350 to 400 milligrams of potassium. This is very relevant because potassium acts directly on the sodium-potassium pump, which is a counter-regulatory mechanism in our body. In other words, the more potassium we consume through our diet, the more we are able to draw sodium out of our body and excrete it through urine. When we pull this sodium, the sodium comes attached to a water molecule. So when we excrete sodium through the kidneys, through urine, we are able to reduce the amount of fluid in the blood, which helps control blood pressure. So in fact, because bananas have a large amount of potassium, they are often recommended for people who want to control their blood pressure, since they play this very interesting role in regulating the volume of fluid in our blood. But many people say to me, Patricia, I'm afraid of bananas because I know bananas have a lot of sugar. I've already seen a video of yours talking about how sugar affects blood pressure. That's another very interesting point. When we think about blood pressure, we usually think of salt, right? As if it were the worst food. But I even have that video I mentioned to you. Yes, blood sugar can really harm the veins, arteries, and blood vessels, and this can negatively affect blood pressure. So a lot of people wonder, after all, are bananas good or bad for you? Of course, bananas have carbohydrates. They're one of those fruits that when we look at them, they do have a high proportion of carbohydrates. But like everything else, it's not that simple. We can't just say that bananas are going to harm you. When we think of high carbohydrates, we think of high insulin, we think of water retention, and that's what usually raises blood pressure on a daily basis. Obviously, this is related to the process of fluid retention. But there's another very important point because many people don't eat bananas on their own. This is an interesting point for us to discuss. Some people eat bananas with honey, with oats. Some people have bananas in desserts, in cakes. They make a pancake and put banana on top. So the way the banana is served obviously always needs to be taken into consideration. Besides the quantity, of course, because it also depends on how many bananas you eat. If you eat one banana, the glycemic impact is completely different than if you eat 2 or 3. I say this because there are people who make a banana dessert with a lot of bananas and still add sugar. So it's all a matter of common sense. It's all about what you pair your banana with as well. The amount of carbohydrates in the banana is important, but we also know that bananas, although they have fiber, can have a moderate to high glycemic index depending on how ripe they are. So ideally, if you eat a banana, you should add some chia seeds, yogurt, or something else to slow down the absorption of those carbohydrates and prevent the insulin spikes I mentioned to you. Now, it's also worth mentioning that many people who have problems related to high blood pressure due to excess glucose or insulin resistance, it's not because of bananas, right? It's usually someone whose eating habits are often centered around ultra-processed foods. Foods with a lot of white flour, which behaves like glucose, right? It quickly turns into glucose, the starch from white bread, from white pasta, in large amounts on a daily basis. And basically ultra-processed foods, cookies, crackers, those things that are already industrially produced. So it's not really fair for us to blame the banana. My blood pressure is high because I eat bananas. How is the rest of your diet? That's the most important thing for you to analyze. It's also worth remembering that the issue of blood pressure regulation isn't just related to sodium, potassium, water, and glucose. When we think about blood pressure, it's a much broader and more delicate mechanism, as I mentioned to you. And just because bananas contain potassium, that doesn't give you a free pass to stop worrying about the rest of your diet, right? Just because you ate a banana doesn't mean you'll feel like, that's fine. Now I can eat lots of stuffed cookies. I can drink as much alcohol as I want. I can smoke. I can eat a lot of processed foods. This frozen lasagna here. That's not how things work. No single food has the miraculous power to improve or worsen your blood pressure. When we think about this, we need to consider a more targeted diet in a broader sense and also take a more holistic approach, right? Try to cut out alcohol, which we know affects blood sugar and blood pressure. Smoking is one of the things that harms our heart and our blood pressure the most. And really think about the issue of processed and ultra-processed foods, which we know often contain a lot of sodium, a lot of sugar, and little fiber. Try to add foods that naturally have more antioxidants, more fiber, more water, which in a broader sense help detoxify our body naturally and help control our blood pressure. Remember that I have several playlists here to help you with issues related to blood pressure, heart health, arteries, foods that help, foods that hinder, lifestyle changes you can make today, daily strategies that can help you. I'll leave all of this down below in the description for you. An interesting point to mention also has to do with the ripening of bananas. We know that the riper the fruit is, the more glucose it naturally has and the less resistant starch. I'm not telling you to eat a green banana because actually it should be cooked before being eaten, right? To make biomass. There's an entire video talking about this. What I'm saying is that you should avoid bananas that are overly ripe. You know, those bananas with lots of black spots that are extremely ripe. First, because they're sweeter, they can stimulate your appetite more and make you want to eat even more. Second, because they'll have less resistant starch and more glucose in an available form. So ideally, you should look for a banana that's more yellow with fewer black spots on the peel, and you should also try to combine the banana at this point with a source of healthy fat, which could be chia seeds, flax seeds, or any seed you like. Pumpkin seeds, for example, which also have plenty of healthy fats, vitamin E, polyphenols, and so on. And also with a source of fiber itself. The chia and flaxseed already have plenty of fiber, so that can be an interesting option. Psyllium can also be a good choice. And adding a protein also helps a lot. So cheese with banana is delicious. Or yogurt, that can be a good option too. I have recipes for cheese and yogurt here on the channel. I'll leave the link for you. Another important thing I want to remind you is that many people with high blood pressure have some issue related to excess weight, being overweight, or obesity, because we know that this excess body weight puts a strain on our cardiovascular system and can increase the risk of high blood pressure, even metabolic syndrome. It's all very interconnected. So, if you consume bananas in large amounts, especially in desserts with syrup, added sugar, or in recipes that already contain a lot of banana, it can end up contributing to excess calorie intake and consequently weight gain. So be careful in that regard as well, because a fruit that is higher in calories and that you might tend to eat more of can make a difference in your body every day, especially if you're in a caloric deficit and need to consume 500 fewer calories per day. Sometimes a slice of banana cake, even though it is homemade, has sugar, it has flour, it has a lot of banana, it can have almost 500 calories. So sometimes it's the little details. You try to maintain a balanced diet throughout the day, but then add other foods here and there and end up losing track a bit, which can make it harder to achieve the weight loss results you were hoping for. We also know from studies that people who are overweight or obese can experience a significant improvement in blood pressure when they reach a healthier, more appropriate weight. I have a video here on how to lose weight in a healthy way, an entire playlist to help you, which I'll also leave down below in the description. Tell me, do you usually eat bananas on a daily basis? Do you notice any difference in your blood pressure when you eat bananas, and how do you eat them? I love to know, so write to me down below in the comments. Remember to like the video, that's really important to me, and to share it with anyone who could benefit from this tip. Let's work together to expand this chain of kindness. That's what I want here with the channel. See you next time. Bye.